Boom. How we feeling? There we go.
Ooh. Do you get that amazing noise when you log in?
It's so weird every time.
I love
But to
it.
be honest with you, this is the new mic that Josh bought, and I've been using his older mic, and this
Mhm.
one's just, like I can hear I've never been able to hear myself, and now I can. It's clear. It's weird.
Yeah, that's what, we were trying to test for this. He was down here in the pod prison cell, and I was upstairs, and he was trying to test, and he couldn't get his mic to work, and he was only using, like, his MacBook speakers. He's like, "Oh my god, this is what Eric has been going through for so long.
Yes.
Can't hear yourself."
So Josh's reckless spending habits of just buying this for the Albuquerque podcast have paid off.
Yes, I love that.
Welcome to the Sweet and Condensed Podcast, a podcast by people who love movies, people, and the magic that lives where they meet.
All right, well, let's jump into it. Hey Eric, how's it going, man?
Doing good. Doing good. Just I feel bad that I don't have a Diet Coke because
Oof.
since you and I met, it's been that conversation of like Coke Zeros, Diet Cokes, and I'm just drinking water, which is
Yeah,
painfully boring.
that is boring. I have coffee and I have water. Coffee in my little mug here. But well, for those of you who don't know me, I am New Mexico Drew, as I am called on the pod and the newsletter. I'm filling in for Josh, who is out frolicking in the mountains of Durango for one of his PhD program classes, having fun, making documentaries, making cool stuff. So this is my first time on the pod. I'll be doing my best to fill in for our curly-haired, wonderful companion. But Eric, what are we going to talk about today?
I just realized the headphone was just squeezing my face, and so I just had this like big ass wrinkle. Today's gonna be a fun one, man. Welcome, Drew. We'll be excited to get you on more often. Probably take Josh's job and then mine, and then it's just gonna end up being a solo Drew pod here in a few months.
Me and Kelly, dude, we're gunning for
It's
it.
just so we're taking over.
Yeah,
If you respond to the group chat, maybe you'd be a part of it.
yeah,
But I'm just
yeah.
kidding. I'm joking.
She'll never see this. It's okay.
She'll never hear this either. Today's gonna be a fun one. We're gonna talk quick little recap on 2024, our favorite watches in theater and just in the year in general, and then most anticipated watches of 2024. These next few months. I mean, it's gonna be stacked. I was excited doing some research on it, and then what I'm excited about is the best punk or hardcore needle drop in a movie. So there's been a lot of good bangers out there, and I found two that I really, really love that I've forgotten about. So that'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah,
Because Drew and I, so we've found common ground because we're enemies in the group chat a lot.
absolutely.
But we found common ground over our taste in music. And dude, you know what's crazy is
What?
you sent me, who was it? Oh man, it was, oh shoot, I'm losing it.
I don't
I'm
know.
losing it
There's
here.
so many greats. Hard to keep
You sent me
track
some
of them.
great ones. And then so a week and a half ago, I played hooky.
Mm-hmm.
There was a day that Kelly and I both go to work. So the kids go to my parents' house and they love it. They get excited about it. So that day, I told my boss, I was like, I got a lot of wellness time and I'm feeling extra well today. So like, I'm not going to come in. And so I woke up at 5 a.m. and drove to Angel Fire
Mm-hmm.
to do the mountain bike park.
Oh,
And you had sent me a band a few weeks back. It was Restraining Order. So I'm so sorry that no. Drain. It was Drain that I listened to. And that is the best mountain biking soundtrack is Drain. Like just jamming in my headphones, bombing the park, like took a hooky from life. And anyways, so shout out to Drew
yes.
for that recommendation. But anyways, we have to do that at the end of the episode because that is how Drew and I bonded over our taste in
It is.
music.
It's the only reason we agreed to do this podcast together.
100%.
Yeah, is the only reason. So yes, that will be fun. But before we jump into that, what's been up in life? What have you been up to lately since the last time you recorded with Josh and Kelly for the pod?
Oh yeah, that was we're doing the Summer I Turned Pretty. So we have been watching the second season of that. So those have been my nights. They've been busy with that. Life has been good, man. I've been working from home actually quite a bit, which I don't normally do. So it's been kind of nice in the middle of the day, taking a walk with the kids and the dogs and hanging out and cooking breakfast at home. I'm normally in the office, so
Mm-hmm.
it's really weird for me to work from home. But no, things have been good. We went to the Jemez Falls here in New Mexico. Took the dogs and the kids. That's like people from New Mexico know that it's our
Yeah.
beach, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah, you can go to Navajo Dam, but like the real beach is like the disgusting, smelly water in the mountains. And so we went on a Friday and was the day after the 4th of July, and the best part was we took the dogs and the kids were ready to go, and we had snacks, and people were, like, beached out by the time we got there already, like,
Yeah.
beach towels out, their music boxes, their coolers, and it's just I'm pretty sure most of our listeners are in New Mexico, but if you're not in New Mexico, that's how we beach here, is brown water.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a picture of it. Like, this is my wife and daughter, and look at that
Yes.
water. That's just
Yep.
disgusting.
Don't take
Does everybody take
don't
showers after?
don't sample that water. It's better.
No.
Ignorance is bliss when you're in the Jemez.
100%.
Yeah. That's
So,
incredible.
yeah, man, it's been fun. I've just we have, this above ground pool in the backyard, so the kids are fish, they wanna swim all the time. Kelly loves to swim, so I have to, like, force them out into the mountains. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Get in the car. We're
Yeah.
gonna take a little road trip."
Yeah.
So it's been fun this summer.
That's great. That
How about
sounds
you, man?
I've pretty much lived the Colorado equivalent of that summer. So we do not have an above ground pool in our yard, but we do have a community pool that's really close that we go to
Oh,
all
nice.
the time. All three of my kids, or the young roommates, as Josh refers to them
Yeah.
as, they're also fish. They love to swim. My youngest little dude, he's only like 5, and he discovered the diving board and just
Oh, man.
45 minutes straight, just like a looping gif of him just running, not even making. He's so small, he doesn't even make a dent. Like the diving board doesn't even register that he's on
Doesn't
there.
move.
Doesn't move, but he's just having the time of his life. So that's good. And then for the 4th, similar to you, we were like, so we're new to Colorado, right? This is actually our first 4th of July in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
Because we haven't stayed the last 2 years. We've gone elsewhere. But we were like, total noobs. We were like, yeah, let's go to the mountains. Let's take the 70 through the tunnel. Let's go to like Breck or, Glenwood Springs, something like that. Like, yeah. And so I'm talking to one of my coworkers who's, big time mountain person, was all about it. And I'm telling him my plans, very casually. It's like, yeah, we'll pack up the truck, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, hit the road. And he just looks at me like I'm an insane person. And he's like, yeah, have you ever tried to go through the tunnel on the 4th of July weekend? And I was like, no, why is it packed? And he just laughed at me. Like, I'd said, hey, the sky's blue. And he was like, yeah, if you don't get on the road by 4 a.m., you're going to be in gridlock traffic he's like, I've had friends who were stuck there all day. And I was just like, what the hell, man? So I'm telling my neighbor this story, and he's laughing at me because he's from Colorado. And he said, hey, you should do? You should go down south to the Platte River in a little town called Decker. He's like, no one will be there. Super unknown spot. And we're like, sweet, that sounds way more our speed. We'll pack up the kids. We'll do it. We'll do a picnic. We'll hang out in the river. It'll be a blast. So we go down and you get to a road and it's like 5-7 miles until Decker. And you have to go like 20 miles on this windy road, but you're right next to the river. It's gorgeous. And there's pull-offs all from this turn up to the thing. And it is just jam-packed with people. There are so many people and there's nowhere to park. And long story short, we eventually found a place. We made lemonade out of lemon. But I have been reeling against Colorado lately. So anybody who's talked to me in real life and is hearing this again, I apologize. But man, Colorado, gorgeous place. Love it. But Jesus H. Christ, there are too many humans here. And just, you can't do anything. It's like flies on poop, man. Any fun mountain, water, lake, I would love to be in the Jemez just kicking it with my New Mexicans right now. So
That's so funny. Everybody had a neighbor who's like, "Hey, I got this spot, man.
yeah.
Like, don't worry about it. I know this spot for
Yeah,
you." And
I
so
know
everybody
this
feels like they're
spot.
in the know, and then
Yeah.
the whole town knows.
Ugh.
I think I've realized that. So Kelly and I have always wanted to move to Colorado, and we visit quite often. We're up there 2-3 times a year. We're going to be up there again in early October for a wedding because we have some family in the Springs and also in Denver. Every time though, that traffic is just brutal. I mean, it's like 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night.
Yep.
Driving through Denver, I feel like it's rush hour in Albuquerque, like worse than rush hour in Albuquerque. So anytime we're actually there, there's a lot of people there.
A lot of people, man. It's not the biggest city, but there's just people come out of the woodwork and they love their mountains. That is what the people are about here in Colorado. So
Are the young roommates, do they like the mountains? Like do they like to get out about, or they
oh yeah. Rhett, my oldest, gets very upset if it's not mountainy enough. I'm like, hey, let's go on a hike. He's like, are we going to the mountains? And I'm like, yeah. He's like in the mountains, like, am I gonna be able to just see nothing but trees? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think so. And like we're driving, he's like, yeah, not enough trees. This isn't really the mountains. He's like, this is just kind of in the foothills. And I'm just like, dude, such a
I did my
snob.
best, okay?
And I know he's like, if it's not a 14er, I'm not interested, Dad. That's he's already on that Colorado behavior. And so we got
That's incredible.
Yeah, we gotta squash that right now.
That's what I love that about when you take your kids places, because when we were in the San Diego doing a quick hike a couple of weeks, 2 weekends ago maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and we took the dogs on that one too, because the dogs love it to get out there and they do really well around other dogs. Like they were off leash in Hamus with us this last time, but when we were doing this hike in San Diego, I had them leashed. But like I have my backpack with all the snacks, the water bottles, the gear, and they're just in like like my daughter's in light up princess shoes. You know what I mean? With like a little
Yeah.
heel on them
Yeah.
or whatever. Or that was actually when we were over here in the Mesa, but it's still like these like Skechers shoes.
Yeah.
And just like Paxton's got his shirt off and he's in like Crocs.
Mm-hmm.
And people are geared out, ready
Yeah.
to roll. But like at a certain age, these young kids, they're just
They don't care.
like t-shirt, shorts, Crocs, and they can pull an entire trail.
That's incredible. All right. Anything else fun that you want to talk about life and updates and our swimming children?
No, I don't think so, man. Let's jump into it. You're pretty religious to Letterboxd, right?
I am, man. I have my favorite watches of 24 pulled up.
What's your log for the year? What's your whole diary? How many have you seen this year?
Let's see. It's in the 60s, I do believe. Let me just go to my profile here real quick. 69 for this year, which is way more than last year. I'm far more diligent this year. I'm pretty sure I log every single movie that I watch. So
see, I feel like I may have missed a few early on because
Mhm.
now I feel like I need to be religious. Like I need to log last night, long legs, but last night. When is this episode coming out? I need to log a few by the time you hear this, people.
This will probably be early August, man. I mean, I was going to talk about that if we, jump to the most anticipated, but I think a couple of my most anticipated will already have been released by the time this podcast comes out. So
for sure.
yeah. So
Now that I'm thinking about
let's talk about, why don't we just rattle off our favorites, just kind of say what they are, and then we can just jump in and maybe talk a little bit about a couple of them, deep dive into a couple. How does that sound?
Yeah, let's do it. Tell me your favorites in theater or streaming or something that you watched for the first time, even if it didn't come out this year.
Ooh, okay. Well, that's two separate Letterboxd lists because I keep a top movies released in 2024
Ooh.
and then top movies watched in 2024, not necessarily released in 2024.
Let's do released in 2024 first. Let's hear that.
Okay. So if we're just looking at, I'll just tell you my numeric numbers and then talk about a few of them. If we're just looking at my number one and number two favorite watches, it's just really hard for me to not say it's Dune 2 and Furiosa. Those were just epic cinematic experiences. But I have a number 3, which is going to be a hot take: Civil War, Love Lies Bleeding at number 4, Monkey Man at number 5, A Quiet Place Day 1 at 6, Long Legs, which we saw last night, at number 7. Another hot take coming in: Bad Boys, Ride or Die at number 8, Challengers at 9, Kinds of Kindness at 10. So I could go on, but I will not. That's my top 10 so far for movies this year.
What's so funny? So Dune, when I was thinking about released this year, immediately Dune popped up, and like I enjoyed Long Legs. I really enjoy horror in theaters. But there was something about the experience of Dune where it was similar to like Barbenheimer last year. And Josh and I have talked about this on the podcast before. Whether you liked Barbie or Oppenheimer more, you didn't like either of them, but you experienced it. Like there was that window of time when those movies dropped that just going to the movies was so exciting. People dressed up for Barbie. People were talking about how they fell asleep in Oppenheimer, or they didn't, or they loved it, or controversy around it. But people were talking about the movies. And so for me, that's why I love Dune 2. And it's my favorite release of this year and favorite theater watch. Well, no, that's a separate conversation. We'll talk about that later, because my favorite theater watch is a movie released 20 years ago. But Dune 2, because everybody was talking about it, was so fun. And it is, I don't know, I think I read a review about it, that it's really what movies were made for. The experience of being taken out of your world and placed into, and not everybody likes sci-fi. Kelly, for example, my loving wife, does not like sci-fi, is not her jam.
Right.
She's never seen the first Dune, right? If you subscribe to our newsletter, plug for the newsletter, send us money on Patreon, subscribe to the newsletter. But if you saw Kelly's take, She's never even seen the first one. But I gaslit her and was like, "Babe, just like hear me out. Just hear me out. First one's great. I'll give you a cliff notes, but just tag along." We have this argument because I like Century 24 in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
She really likes Flix Brew. And so we settled on going to Flix. I was like, all right, fine. We'll just pick the biggest actual theater in Flix to see it in because I really love that like grand experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just such a fun time in the movies, man. Everybody was talking about it on social media. The performances were amazing. Just the entire movie was so well done. And you're just immersed into the world. That's got to be my number one watch of the released in 2024
Yeah.
by far.
Yeah. I think is like what you're saying. I think blockbuster has almost become a bad word. Like, oh, it's
For
just
sure.
a huge blockbuster, huge budget. Like people really, it's not really used as a good thing anymore. But I think that is Denis showing us like operating at the highest level. Like I can have a mega all-star cast, I can have a huge production, and I can still deliver an incredible movie. And like you said, it's kind of like that's the reason why movie theaters exist. That's the reason why we go to the movies is for fun stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely. Like there's no doubt about it. Dune has to be my favorite watch of the year in theaters, but that's not, I think there's other more interesting ones that haven't necessarily had as much discourse around them that have like stuck with me. Like for all the reasons you mentioned, Dune has stuck with me. But as far as like the movie, the story, those things, the other ones that I mentioned, there's been a few that have stuck with me a little bit more than Dune 2 and Furiosa, even though it's just hard. You know what I mean? It's like if you're into soccer, you know what I mean? It's hard to just say that like Lionel Messi, you know what I mean, isn't just one of the great. It's like you might not like him, he might not be your favorite to watch, he might play for the team you hate the most, but it's really tough to like not say that he's the best or whatever it is as far as like film directors like Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg, like just some of the greats. You might not like all their stuff, but you have to acknowledge what they contribute to film. So
Absolutely. I think you're right. You know what's funny is I saw the TV Glow didn't make your top 10, Drew.
it just dropped
I'm
out.
just kidding.
You know what?
I'm
Okay,
just kidding.
it's number 12. Yeah.
What's
it's number
11?
Fall Guy, the Fall Guy. So I
Interesting.
also don't. My rating system is all over the place. It's like, so the reason why Bad Boys Ride or Die is so high for me is because I just had the best freaking time watching that movie.
Mm.
There's like I cracked up laughing. Josh was there with me. He couldn't believe it. I think Josh had more fun watching me than maybe the movie itself because Martin Lawrence had me in stitches the entire time. Like I don't even know if I want to rewatch it because that was just so magical. It was the perfect circumstance. It hit me when it needed to hit me, and it was an incredible movie watching experience. So it's not just like, the most technically amazing movies. It's my rating system is very much all over the place, but I saw TV Glow's number 12. So
It's so funny. I think it's something, again, we've talked about this before a little bit, depending on the movie, but just time and place when you watch something, right? Like you said, it hits you at the right time. There's something about horror movies, because I love horror movies, that if there's the right environment, it just elevates how scary it is, right? And watching movies at Flix Brew isn't necessarily scary because you're dipping your wings in your ranch or you got your pizza right in front of you, right?
Yeah.
But I talk about it before. I've watched a movie on a train by myself, commuting home from Santa Fe in winter, and it was dark and I was alone on my laptop. So I was scared out of my mind.
Yeah.
So it's like, but comedy is that same way. So one of our more recent episode drops was on Adam Sandler and his discography and or his filmography. And I hadn't seen 51st Dates in a while, and I wasn't sure I wanted to rewatch it for that. And I watched it, and Kelly and I were just dying.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I watch it today, it might not be that funny.
Yep.
Right. If I don't know if I laughed like that when I first watched it, but it was one of those, like, I remember this one being a key Adam Sandler movie for me. But it's just, again, place, time, what happened to you that day. Who knows? But there's something important about that. And like you said, Bad Boys is not the most elevated, cinema experience, but it's a good damn time. And I think you said it with Dune, where it's like sometimes big blockbusters are just fun movies, kind of get a bad rap. And sure, there's like Kinds of Kindness, right?
Yep.
Kinds of Kindness and Bad Boys are both on your list.
Yep.
Those are not in the same level of filmmaking at all. But again, you can enjoy them both, and they both can be in your top 10, which is super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you want to give any other shout outs for your like first half 2024 watches before we jump into what we're most excited for the second half?
I had a good time with Planet of the Apes, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. The movie wasn't to me on the level of the first three,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a really good time in the week leading up to it because we rewatched all of them. Now, okay, I've said this to people before, and they said, "Well, technically, you didn't rewatch the originals." I'm like, "All right, okay, I mean the more recent trilogy,
Yeah.
starting with my man James Franco, with Rise of the Planet of the Apes." But we rewatched those Rise, Dawn, and War, and leading up to Kingdom, and so that was a fun week experience for me. And
Yeah.
seeing that in theaters was really exciting. So, just quick shout out to like that period of time in early May was a good time just to rewatch those. Remember the feeling of seeing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes 10 years ago, and when in Rise of the Planet of the Apes when Caesar says no, and just the whole theater erupting. So, anyways, that was a fun period of time for movies for me this year in May when Kingdom came out.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, let's jump to what's coming up, man, because we got some bangers on the horizon. And by the time this drops, we'll have already released.
Great idea, Eric. Let's go ahead and jump into the most anticipated movies of the second half. We're going to be pretty much in August, so we're in the back half of the year, but there's definitely a lot coming up. I'm excited to hear what you have to say because as I was putting together my list, there's a lot of horror movies coming out
Absolutely.
and pretty exciting.
There we go.
You're good.
So I had initially majority horror. So I'm really, really excited for, in this order. Here we go. Let me pull it up. Trap, Gladiator 2, Beetlejuice, and Twisters has already come out. I was really excited for Twisters, but also Speak No Evil. And then this is just like a nod. Joker is supposed to come out too. So I'm
Mhm.
excited. We'll see what happens there. I enjoyed the first one. It's not on my top list. Depending on when this episode comes out, Alien Romulus is above Trap. But we'll see when this episode comes out. If this comes out before then, Romulus has got to be at the top. And then we get into Trap, Gladiator 2, and Speak No Evil.
Yeah.
Gladiator 2 snuck in there. I wasn't sure, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
When I was hearing the rumblings, the cast was great from the jump.
Mhm.
Super cool. But, it's one of those, I hate to sound like an old head because, it doesn't need a remake or it doesn't need a prequel or a sequel. It just felt like one of those. Gladiator didn't seem like one of those movies that maybe needed one. But
Mhm.
after seeing the trailer, I'm stoked. And I know people didn't like the music in the trailer. I know they were trying to be creative with, the lyrics in the song and what was happening on screen, and that's fine. I don't care. I know they're not going to play Kanye in the middle of the battle with Pedro Pascal, and I know that's
Mhm.
not going to happen. But after seeing the trailer, I'm stoked. So that has definitely jumped onto my list. I would have watched it regardless, but I'm now excited about it. So Romulus for sure. Trap. I love M. Night though. Like I
Mhm.
love him, and I know he's controversial for people because he has some bombs
Yep.
and then some bangers, right? But Signs, The Village, like The Village freaked me out, man. Like so, I don't know. There's so many of his movies that are just incredible. I have a lot of faith. Trap, which comes out. Let's see.
August 2nd, I think.
Oh yeah, that's
Or no, I could be wrong about that.
that is August 2nd. So Josh Hartnett,
Mhm.
that's my guy since Pearl Harbor. Okay, so Pearl Harbor was my movie back in the day when I
Yeah.
was younger. Like I just loved Pearl Harbor, Ben Affleck, Josh Hartnett. So it's really cool to see him in this. But I don't know. I think that's going to be a banger of a movie too.
Yeah.
Mostly horror, but snuck in Gladiator in there and Beetlejuice. Kelly loves Beetlejuice, so I'm excited for us to go see that.
Yeah. No, I think it's gonna be great. Um,
What's your list?
my list. I think I'm a little bit more. I think I have a little bit more, few more than you. But I do have. When you didn't mention Alien Romulus from the beginning, I was a little bit shocked. I was like,
You're like,
why?
hold on.
I was like, whoa. Because I know you and I are both very excited about that, and we might have gotten Josh on the bandwagon. I think he likes to pretend that he's a little scared pansy, which he is, but he likes to play that up. But I think Josh is low key very excited for Alien
Because you guys
Romulus.
went and saw Alien, or was it Aliens that
No,
you saw in theaters?
he went and saw Alien, the original
Okay.
release. I was not able to go, but I put on our watch list that he needs to watch Aliens, which you guys talked
Okay,
about
good.
last a couple podcasts ago. You guys talked about that. James Cameron did Aliens. So My list, so I think by the time this comes out, Deadpool, Wolverine, and Twisters will have already come out, but those are fun. I'm excited. I'm not the biggest Marvel fan. I will watch damn near any Marvel movie, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but I'm not like a huge Marvel fanatic, but I'm just excited for all the hype around Deadpool and Wolverine, the whole talk of another billion-dollar movie, getting people back, that's exciting for me, so I'm looking forward to that. I've got Trap on there as well. So last night at Long Lake saw the first extended trailer for Cuckoo, and that title is appropriate. It looks batshit bonkers crazy.
We didn't get a trailer for that in mind.
Oh man, it looks great. Neon is on one this year with Long Legs, Cuckoo. What was the other one? I think they are also responsible for a couple other of these insane horror movies this year. So good for Neon on just churning those out. Alien Romulus, Beetlejuice, Wild Robot, which we had one of our very first watch list worthies, I think, on the newsletter. Wolves, which I am saying that's hard to say wolves instead of wolves. Wolves, that's the Brad Pitt, George Clooney joint that's going to be coming out. The anime movie, which I am not a big anime guy. Nothing against it, just never super got into it, but an anime Lord of the Rings movie. So it's Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. So that looks great. And then another one, Nosferatu, Christmas Day.
I blew it. I knew I missed one. But that's Christmas, right?
Christmas Day. Yep, jingle bells, baby. Let's wrap up the gifts, you know what I mean? Or unwrapping the gifts, and let's get seated for Nosferatu, because that's where I'll be on Christmas Day.
So in the trailer, I loved the trailer. I came home so excited to show Kelly. I didn't even send it to her in the text. I was like, babe, we're gonna be seated for this. Like, kids going to bed, get some popcorn, and before we start our show, like, we're watching the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And Willem Dafoe's accent in the trailer, where he's like, "We are here encountering the vampire," or whatever he said, like, just so ridiculous. But I'm so excited. Like, that's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Immediately thought of the SpongeBob episode where he flips the lines, it's Nosferatu, and like you see like the real Nosferatu. Anyways, I'm excited for that one too.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Film school New Mexico, Drew's reeling right now because I was forced to watch the 100-year-old version of Nosferatu. I don't think it was as fun as this new one will be. So
that's for sure.
But yeah, I think there's some great movies coming out. Wild Robot, I'm really excited about. It gives me big time Iron Giant vibes, and it's from the same maker who did How to Train Your Dragon. So I think and Lupita, who was just in A Quiet Place, she's the lead voice actress, and you've got Pedro Pascal in there as well. There's a couple. It's a really good voice cast, but I'm excited for that. I did not expect to have so much horror on my anticipated list, but and then I messed up because Gladiator 2 was absolutely on my most anticipated list, and I guess for me personally, I don't really hold films too precious to where I think like, no, don't touch it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's kind of like the nature, right? Like, you write a song that's incredible, it's perfect, but it's like someone someday is going to come along and want to cover that song. You know what I mean? You can't be mad about it. So it's like, I think of like The Goonies, which is one of like my absolute favorite movies from my childhood. I wouldn't want them to make a Goonies 2, but it's like, well, I don't know, if you do it really, really well, and
if they did it well, exactly.
I'm down. And so 80-year-old Ridley Scott wanting to do Gladiator 2, I'm like, all right, cool. It's not some big studio coming in trying to do a cash grab. It's the original mind behind it. Like you said, the cast is, I am just, sign me up with the biggest Paul Mescal and Pedro Pascal stans. You know what I mean? Like, just unashamed. Love those dudes. I will watch anything that they're, and that's another thing. Pedro's not always in the best movies. Wonder Woman,
for sure,
1984 or whatever. Oh, horrible. But I watched it because of Pedro. So sign me up for anything that those two dudes are in, and it looks like they really gave it their. And then of course Denzel. Like, come on, that man giving one of his monologues, you know what I mean, to ancient Rome. I am
unbelievable.
I'm ready for it. And it's what's really cool is that you and I share a lot of stuff on social media about movies, and we follow a lot of movie stuff. It seems like the people, the general population, is very excited about Gladiator. Not film Twitter, because like you said, film Twitter, I think they're being a bunch of dorks and are trying to nitpick. But the people out there are excited for Gladiator 2. So
one thing I was thinking about as you were saying that is my favorite about remakes and continuing to make movies. So like one of my favorite movies ever in horror movies is Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which I'm realizing here is the 7th installment of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
No way. I didn't know that.
So I'm looking at them right now. So there's the first one in 84. Wes Craven's New Nightmare came out in 94. And there's Freddy's Revenge, Dream Warriors. There's a few in between that are okay, and then a few that are very forgettable. But one of my favorite horror movies ever is the 7th installment in a series. So you go through Scream. There's how many Screams are there? But Kelly and I will rewatch those time and time again, every one of them. And so it's like, there's not really a movie that's too precious to remake. And it is possible to absolutely blow it when you're making more than one, right? Like you look at Halloween and how many they made, and the last one is just brutal. But there's another one coming out. It wasn't on my most anticipated. I'll definitely check it out. But The Crow with Skarsgård.
Yeah.
So I recently watched. That's not recently. A few months ago, watched the original, and then I saw the trailer for this one. It's again, it's not on my list. I'll watch it. I don't know how I feel about that. But again, it's not one of those where like I felt, why would they remake this? But there are people who felt that way for sure about that one specifically.
Yeah.
Like my initial reaction to Gladiator was, but these people even still, after seeing the trailer for The Crow, are holding it near and dear.
Yeah.
That just, how dare you touch this? It was great. And I'm like, the original was fun, but it's not like groundbreaking cinema that should never be redone. I love Bill Skarsgård. I think he's great, and he is also in Nosferatu.
Yeah.
So we'll see it. It's not on my most anticipated, but we'll definitely check it out. And there's another sequel for horror is Smile 2.
Yep.
Coming out in October. So again, they're doing sequels, and I'll check out Smile 2 for sure, because Smile 1 messed me up.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not seen Smile yet, so I need to, and then I'll have to check out Smile 2. It's just one of those ones that I just couldn't get around to seeing, and there was just too many on the docket. So I need to do that. So what other movies do we want to touch on, Eric, and just kind of talk about that we're really excited for, that we maybe haven't dived into yet?
How do you feel about the Joker? Because that's coming out. What is that?
October. It's like middle of October, beginning of October. So the first one, I appreciated it. Never want to watch it again. I just, not a fun movie to watch, like Joaquin Phoenix, incredible performance.
Yep.
The way it was shot was beautiful. Interesting story. So I think that this next one, I love Lady Gaga. I heard she sings like 15 covers. No word yet on if Joaquin joins in. I'm pretty sure he's talented enough to do it and pull it off, but I'm excited for that. I think the trailer definitely made me far more intrigued than I was. So for sure, I'm going to see it. It's also just very bizarre how outside of the DCU world that it is, it's just really existing on its own as a completely different movie and isn't interested in the other one. So that makes it interesting to me that it just doesn't care about Zack Snyder or Ben Affleck or Robert Pattinson or like anybody. But yeah, I think I'll be there for it. I'll be excited. I think I'm keeping my expectations moderate. So if it's amazing, I'll be excited and blown away. And if it's not that great, then it's like, okay. What about you?
That's a great point that you made, that you watched it and you won't watch it. There's some movies where it's like one and done. It was great. It was well done. Acting was awesome. One of those for me that was just really tough was Manchester by the Sea, but for different reasons. It was so sad. I don't have any interest in watching. Like, I'm just going through my list really quick of like what I've watched this year to think if there are any that I feel that way about. And I think the same with Joker. I never rewatched it.
Yeah.
I never. And again, like you said, it's not part of the DC universe where like, The Dark Knight, easily rewatchable, right? Even Batman with Robert Pattinson, it's a long one, but you could rewatch it, right? If you had the time or wanted to. But with Joker, don't have the desire to. Again, it was great. I'm glad it made as much money as it did. Like, I think it was really great for movies, and it was a great performance. I watched it once in theaters, and that was the end of that. Like, I don't think I'll do it again, and I think that'll be the case with this one too. So, oddly enough, this is in your top list of this year that you've watched, but I almost feel that way about Civil War.
Hmm.
Like, I told people about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd rewatch that.
Yeah.
Did
So
you see it more than once?
no, but I want to. That's the thing. So I think what sucks is that sometimes the marketing team, and we talked about this a little bit with our newsletter with Long Legs, is that the marketing team can get carried away. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And they can misrepresent the film. I don't think Long Legs was misrepresented. They definitely hyped it up. I think Civil War was misrepresented.
Yes.
And I think people were expecting a war movie when in fact what it's about a group of journalists who are trying to cover a war, and it's about their stories. Kind of like A Quiet Place. For those who haven't seen it yet, people might be expecting a monster flick when really it's about humans and there's monster or alien creatures around them, right? And so I think I would wager most people who really don't like A Quiet Place, or you know what I mean, they just had misaligned expectations. Like they wanted a monster alien movie and that's not what they got. So I understand that. It's interesting that I haven't seen Civil War in more top, like no one mentions it in their top watches, but I really, really liked it. I'm also a huge Alex Garland fan, the writer and director.
Yeah.
I love almost everything he does, but so I think it was just beautifully shot. I think it was just incredible to look at. I loved the viewing experience. The sound design was not enjoyable. That like almost ruined my life. Literally, Sarah, that's the one movie we got her to go see with us this year, and I don't think she'll ever go back. She's traumatized.
She'll never go back.
She literally sat underneath the freaking Dolby speaker or the IMAX speaker, and it changed our world. And we might have CTE now because of that. So that was not fun, but everything else I absolutely loved. I'll 100% rewatch it, but I do understand if it was a category of like, yep, never gonna watch it again, because it was heavy and there's a lot of heaviness. It made me feel things, and I can understand that people would not want to feel those things again, but I guess I'm unwell and I would.
It's funny you said that marketing does that ahead of movies, but I think also time does that when we romanticize and think about movies. Because I was digging into Gladiator again and planning to rewatch it. Kelly's never seen it, and she claims she has, but I know she hasn't. It's one of those that she doesn't want to watch. And the more I was like digging into it, as I think it's romanticized as like this incredible action film, but the action is almost, I'm not going to say scarce, but it's a long movie.
Yes.
And let's see.
A lot of dialogue in between.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, okay, so it's 2.5 hours. There are incredible action sequences. The opening scene is amazing. But the story and the character development and the melodrama that's throughout is really the majority of the movie, but it's romanticized. And I'm not saying this is in a bad way, as this like incredible action movie. When yes, it is like, genre as an action adventure, but when you watch that 2.5 hours is not filled with blood and guts and battle scenes, right? There's incredible battle scenes kind of scarcely throughout the movie. So I think marketing can do that ahead of a movie, maybe set expectations one way or the other, but time will also do that, right? When you think back to movies like Gladiator that get ranked so highly among like the greatest battle action movies, when really it's so much more than that. And I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm not criminalizing people or demonizing people who think that, but it is so much more than that. And time can do that to us with movies, right? I definitely feel that way about. I remember rewatching Batman Begins for the first time after many years, because I've rewatched The Dark Knight probably hundreds of times, but Batman Begins I hadn't so much, and it's very different, right?
Yeah.
Rewatching it. It's not really a superhero movie in the sense that like Batman is on screen for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And it's really just about the development of Bruce Wayne. And so just again, these movies over time, and it hasn't been as long. I think Batman Begins was 2006.
That sounds right.
And Gladiator was much earlier 2000s. But anyways, it's funny how marketing was. Yeah, Long Legs it was similar in the sense of they not overhyped it. They hyped it to be this like, well, I don't know. Depending on who you are, Kelly had a pretty dreadful experience. But just for us, if you like horror, it may not give you what the marketing told you it was going to give you. Especially they marketed like the heart rate of the actress, right? Seeing Nick Cage, and so, anyways, yeah, it's interesting though.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, there's definitely danger to like setting expectations too high, because if you tell someone this is going to be and I found this just like recommending shows or movies.
For sure.
Like I think you and I are pretty similar, that we're pretty passionate, you know what I mean, zealot folks for the things that we love, and we can hype it up. And I think when we tell people this is the greatest thing that I've ever seen in my life, then people go with the expectation of, okay, this has got to be the greatest. And then they're going to be looking for things, right, that are bad. Like, well, this is why it's not the greatest. This is why it's not the greatest. But if what I try to do now is like, hey, I really liked this and I would highly recommend it, and just kind of leave it at that and let them, because then they're going to be looking for, you know what I mean, good things about it, rather than if you say it's the greatest thing in the world, then yes, people are going to try to pick it apart. I don't know. It's kind of like even the Gladiator 2 phenomenon. It's like, hey, you put out an incredible trailer and everyone's like, oh my God, did you see the Gladiator 2 trailer? And then people are going to be like, well, let me find all the reasons why it sucks.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just like, yeah, humans are crazy. We're all crazy.
I take offense to it though, with shows or movies. So I'm very hesitant now recommending to certain people that I try to judge ahead of time if they might like it, because True Detective season 1 is just some of like my favorite TV ever. And I hyped it up so much to my brother and sister-in-law. And I was like, look, you guys like Dexter and you liked Mindhunter. And it's the best things about those shows. Just like, you know, I was trying to like hype it up to them. I was like, I loved that season of TV. Like, it was just so good, so damn good.
Yep.
And they were like, yeah, I kind of found they didn't really like it, and like my soul was crushed. I was like, no. Like clearly something's wrong. Like, are you sure you watched the right season?
You watched season 2, didn't you?
100%. And so that's how I feel. So I'm hesitant now. And someone told me they didn't like Dune 2, and my world collapsed. Like, I went into a slight depression. Needed to go to therapy. I didn't even recommend it to them. They just called and like, hey, we just saw this movie. And I was like, what movie? And they said it was Dune 2. It wasn't really great. And I was like, must have been a big brain movie. Okay.
Yeah.
I was so mad. I like got so defensive, as if I participated in any part of that movie other than paying to go see it.
Yeah.
I was so upset.
So you're saying these people just called you out of the blue to bully you? This was
they had seen my Instagram posts about it and wanted to bully me.
Wow.
Kind of brutal, to be honest.
Come on, bullies. Bullying 2024. Bullying is not
What are we doing here?
All right. Anything else about what we're looking for? I mean, my last thing that I'll say is, what a freaking time to be living with all these great movies coming out.
Absolutely.
I think we've got a lot of good stuff. And for those folks who don't like horror movies, there's still a lot of really good stuff coming out. There's some really fun animated stuff. There's drama. There's rom-com. We didn't talk about Moana 2 or Wicked, but those are going to be fun. Bring the whole family joints that I'm also looking forward to. So I really do think for the rest of the year, we've got a little bit of something for everybody. So that's exciting. But let's talk about the best punk rock and or hardcore needle drop in a movie. And
oh man.
So for our friends who don't know what a needle drop is, a needle drop is when an existing song is played in a movie, right? So if they start playing We Will Rock You by Queen in the movie, that is a needle drop, kind of like the vinyl, put the needle on the vinyl. That's what it's called in the movie. So anytime you hear an existing song that's not a part of the original score in your movies, that is a needle drop. And Eric and I were able to, put our hate and disdain for each other aside, because we found out we were fellow hardcore and punk rock fans, which the rest of the crew, I can't say that they share the affinity and love for it. So, I'm going to let you kick it off. But before you do, I'm going to tell you that this was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And
for sure.
And I would not recommend Googling on your work computer words like hardcore and movie in the same search query. So I put in movies that include hardcore needle drops, and nothing crazy came up, but I was like, ooh, didn't think that one through. So we were talking about hardcore, which is like a subgenre of like punk rock and metal. That is what we were referring to. We should probably also specify that. But yeah, that was interesting. I might get a email from IT on Drew. We got to talk to you about your search history on that one.
Dude, this literally happened to me last year. We were in a wedding and I got sent the link and I was looking. I said, okay, cool. Let me see who I'm walking with. Let me see who the other groomsmen are, right? Like figure out who's who. Because it was a destination wedding. And one of the guys, I was like, I don't recognize it. I don't know who this person is. So I just Googled their name and I'm like, maybe I've seen them because I was familiar with everybody else. And he shared the same name as a male porn star.
Oof.
And so this was on my work computer. And so literally just shit hit the fan. Everything. It was like Pornhub, Ryan such and such. And I was like, oh. And I just slammed my laptop and was like, okay, this is like a defining moment in my job here. So I walked over to IS and I was like, all right, hear me out.
It's
And
not
they just
what it
laughed
looks
in my
like.
face and like they didn't even care. They were like, don't worry about it. But just like I literally just it didn't you know how sometimes if you Googled like just now I Googled Gladiator and it said, did you mean Gladiator 2 film 2024? Like it tries to correct you. It just straight up like let's say his name was Ryan Jacobson. Ryan Jacobson.
Sounds like
all
a porn
the
star.
Pornhub links. And I was like, what is happening? I panicked. It's anyways.
We know what you want, Eric.
Along the
we're
same
gonna
lines.
give it
Yeah,
to you.
exactly. They're like, you meant this.
Yeah. So I have a feeling your needle drop's gonna be better than mine. I'll share mine after you, but you kick us off. What are your favorite hardcore / punk needle drops in movies?
Okay, so both of them are cheating because both of them are scenes from movies that featured the actual bands playing the songs. Because I vividly remember for me, this was one of like those movies where I was young, impressionable, and it was Vin Diesel, baby. And again, this is one that
Rammstein?
yes, dude.
Yes.
That's Firefly from Triple X.
Yes.
Don't Google that
Yeah.
on your work computer also. The way I got there just now was Vin Diesel movies, and then I click into it. Okay,
Yes. Good.
so I'm not gonna Google Vin Diesel XXX.
Yes. Work computer etiquette 101, people. You didn't think
But
you'd get.
I rewatched that scene, just so sick. I remember wanting to listen to all of their music as a kid, and my brother got me into hardcore music, and like my first taste of it was who was it really? I don't know. I think Rammstein was probably the hardest thing I had heard after seeing this movie. But watching that scene was so incredible. But I don't know. Have you seen Ace Ventura?
Are you going to talk about Cannibal Corpse right now?
Absolutely.
Yes, I've seen Ace Ventura. The better
Those are the two
movie.
scenes.
Pet Detective, the number one, which is way better than When a Nature Calls, by the way. Yes. Tell the people about the scene that you're referencing.
It's incredible because they really captured in both of the well, the Rammstein is a little different, right? Because they killed somebody who then everybody then crowd surfs the body. But the Firefly, like just the flames killing somebody, he gets shot and he falls back and they kind of crowd surf his body. And so that was a gnarly scene. But I like the Cannibal Corpse scene in Ace Ventura because Jim Carrey's character just comes in trying to vibe in his Hawaiian shirt. And I forget who he asks for. He's like, "Oh, is so and so here?"
Yeah.
And the dude is just hen begging next to him in a tank top, and he's like, "Thank you," or whatever he said. But like, he thinks he's agreeing with him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love that whole scene. Really felt like a punk show. But those are the two that I found that I just love. And again, it's not necessarily a needle drop because in both of them the bands are actually playing. So I kind of cheated.
That's okay. I'm glad you did because I'm glad you brought in. So Rammstein, you could also say, and Cannibal Corpse are like borderline like metal, right? Like more
for sure.
more like metal. And I'm glad you did that because my favorite needle drop is actually just kind of like an old thrash metal one. But I loved trying to stick with hardcore and punk. I loved when The Departed kicks off with Shipping Up to Boston by the Dropkick Murphys.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was super fun. Like his little montage when Leo's getting ready to be an inside informant and like doing, dips in his prison cell and stuff. That's incredible. 17-year-old Drew was obsessed with The Used. And when I was in theaters on opening night, watching Transformers and Shia LaBeouf is running away from a Predacon and Bumblebee rolls up and they jump in. And as soon as the door hits, Pretty Handsome Awkward by The Used, just needle drops, and it like
That's
my
incredible.
emo spirit left my body, and I was just like watching the scene above myself when that happened. So that for me was like there's this particular theater watch was incredible, and it hits. Like Steve Jablonsky, the guy who did the music for that, he timed that very well. But another amazing cinematic moment that maybe is like my favorite needle drop, because it was the very first time I ever heard Metallica, one of my all-time favorite bands. That was like, 8-year-old Drew was obsessed with Metallica. That they probably what got me hooked on metal. And when I was going to the University of New Mexico, we were in the film program, and we got like a Sony rep came, and they were like, "Hey, we want to do an audience test of a movie, and do you guys want to go for free? It's in an hour." And we're like in the Student Union building. Did you ever go watch a movie in the Student Union building, Eric?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So it was there. They would do like $2 movies all the time, like old movies. And so we were like, hell yeah. So me and a group of my friends, a whole bunch of film dorks, packed in this little theater in the bottom of the Student Union building at UNM, and it was Zombieland. So it hadn't been, they were test screening it for us. So not even released yet. Like, and in the intro, when that zombie goes through the windshield and they needle drop For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica, again, my spirit left my body. My soul felt shivers all over it as if I had skin and I had the goosebumps. Because I'd always thought, like, why don't more people use Metallica? Like, there's so many iconic Metallica songs that would be perfect needle drops. Actually, I messed up. I think I'm wrong, because Old School used Master of Puppets, and I'm pretty sure Old School came out before Zombieland. So,
yep.
So I stand corrected by myself before the people come from my throat on my very first podcast. But that was equally as fun, Master of Puppets in Old School. But yeah, when they did For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is definitely one of my favorite Metallica songs of all time, that's probably my favorite needle drop.
The reason I even wanted to ask this question is because recently, a couple of shows that I've been shows, not talking about movies, but shows, is The Bear and Severance. And The Bear has a couple of scenes where they used refused new noise.
Yep.
And they even play it in season 3 for the first time in one of the episodes, and not to spoil anything, but when oh man, I forget her name. It's
Natalie.
Yeah, when Natalie is going into labor, I freaking got so stoked, because that the use of that song throughout the season has been amazing for me.
Yeah.
But also in Severance, it's Ace of Spades by
Motorhead.
Yeah.
Oof.
So that is in. Have you seen Severance?
I have not. No, you've got me hyped on it, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's a slow burn show for sure. Like, it is not everybody's cup of tea. And they play that towards the end, and it will completely give away some of the story if I tell you when.
Okay.
But oh my God, I threw that in the playlist. As soon as I saw the scene in Severance, I'm like, boom, Spotify, add it to the playlist. And I've been jamming it ever since.
Yes.
And then I'm trying to figure out, did you ever watch Billions? A cheesy
Is that The Rock
corporate show?
No, I haven't. No. I was thinking of Ballers, but no, I have
no,
not seen Billions.
It's similar. Billions is let's see. The first few seasons are pretty good. It's got Paul Giamatti, Damian Lewis.
Yes, I know what you're talking
so
about.
So it's decent cast, and the first few seasons are really fun. But there is a song in there. Oh man, I know I had it in my playlist here. Peace Sells by Megadeth.
Oof.
And it's like climax. So it's this corporate world, billionaires arguing with district attorneys. So like not hardcore at all. But one of the billionaires gets pissed off the main character. His name is Bobby Axelrod. And he kind of like gets into it with the DA. I think it's the DA. And hops in his like sports car. But then Peace Sells comes on.
Yeah.
And I was hyped. I'm like, dude, I'm going to make my first $1 billion today. And I'm going to hit the stock market. So I love that. Again, these are shows, not movies, but I love in movies and shows when they use it at the right time. It's not overused. Yep. New noise, not overused in The Bear. It hits at the right moments. Ace of Spades and Severance, the same thing. They bring it in the middle of the season, and then in the finale, at just like, again, Severance is a corporate show about, everybody's suit and tied up, and the use of those is just so fun to me. Like, it just gets, like you said, when you saw those in the sub, like, it gets your blood going.
Yeah,
I love it, especially when you don't expect it, right?
Yeah,
these shows that where you wouldn't really expect to see that. A lot of when I was like researching too, people were talking about The Green Room. Did you ever see that horror movie?
Yeah. Yep.
And so those songs were super great, but you expect that in that movie.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to call those were really fun ones,
Mm-hmm.
but it's expected, right? So in these other shows or movies where you're watching The Bear, you don't expect something like that. When Natalie's giving birth, trying to call Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
Or about to call Jamie Lee's.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely trained us for that opening, like ding, 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 ding. Like they trained us for that to be like, oh my god, my blood pressure just skyrocketed because of that show. Like the show has, if you followed it through, it trains you to say shit is about to hit the fan and
for sure
get ready for it. So no, that's like you said. I think the novelty of like not expecting something and it's just perfect makes it work. But then The Bear is a really good example of using the same, like thematically, you know what I mean? To use a snobby word, a motif, you know what I mean? To have that motif running throughout the show, but it literally does contextualize it to that show and kind of changes the meaning of it. So I agree with you. That's a really fun needle drop. And I love Lemmy and Ace of Spades, and that opening bass line for P Cells is just that'll get you going. That'll get you going.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, what else? Those are the needle drops, people. Let's what are your favorite needle drops? Hardcore, punk, or otherwise? What are the best needle drops that come to mind when you think of the best needle drops? Respond in the comments below.
Send us $5 when you respond. I think that's it, man. I think we'll get, and tell us too, what are you excited about this year? What were your favorite watches?
Yep.
I think my favorite thing to see with the newsletter on Instagram is people who respond to the stories with their favorite watches.
Yep.
So tell us what you're watching, shows, movies, also what you're excited about that's coming up that we may have missed. Because you're right. Like we didn't talk about Moana 2 or these other ones, these good family movies. There's a lot happening and it's exciting to see, right? I think Glenn Powell is the next big guy. So Twisters will have come out. Hopefully that's as great as we all want it to be. It sounds like it's going to be. So lots of great blockbusters, lots of great family fun. Despicable Me 4 came out last month.
Let's go.
Inside Out 2. So there's a lot, right? Depending on the genre you like. So let us know what you're excited about.
Yeah. And like Eric said, we talk about movies that are out now, what movies are most excited about seeing. We talk about favorite watches from days of yesteryear. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to our newsletter, sweetandcondensed.com. Follow us on Instagram or wherever, and definitely like and subscribe. The pod on Spotify, Apple, or if you're, some strange person who just listens to it somewhere else. I literally don't know how else you can listen to podcasts, but hey, give us a subscribe and follow there too. All right. Eric, did you have a stroke?
I think I did.
All right, I'm going to stop recording.